few years ago, a man by the name of Mike Thakur had a crazy idea. What if he could use the power of entrepreneurship to create profit that would then fuel his purpose to help people? Today, we're going to be talking to Mike Thakur, CEO of WorkLodge and founder at the Gabriel Project. He's on a mission to change lives through entrepreneurship and sustainable social enterprise. Let's welcome Mike Thakur. Hi, this is Bob Poole. Welcome to the Water Cooler Hangout. For over 40 years, I've been helping people like you grow and prosper. Please join me and guests like Seth Godin, Guy Kawasaki, Lauren Cordain, Beverly and Tim Walden, Phil Elmore, and more as we share real-life stories about sales, marketing, leadership, creativity, and current events. Need help in moving to the next level? Find out how others have done it by listening to the Water Cooler Hangout. Hi everyone, Bob Poole here, and I'm here today with Mike Thakur. Hi Mike, how you doing today?
Bob, I'm doing great, sir. Appreciate you bringing me onto the show.
Yeah, well, you're out in the land of Texas, as I recall, right?
I'm in Texas, as you can tell from this phenomenal southern drawl that I've got.
I was going to say, it must be south of, or is it North Texas or South Texas that has the British accent?
It is. So I'm originally from Manchester in the UK.
Okay, got it. There's got to be a story there. How did you find yourself in Texas?
Well, my wife and I got married very young, and we spent a number of years trying to figure out who we wanted to be and what we wanted to do. And, I've got a church background. Obviously, I'm a guy with faith, deeply rooted in my DNA. And so we started to look at opportunities in the nonprofit realm. And that's really how we ended up in the US. We originally came out to Nashville, worked with a substance abuse program there for a while called Teen Challenge, which was just phenomenal. And then when we moved over to South Houston, in Lake Jackson was the grand metropolis that we moved to, 29,000 people. Yeah. But we came out there to work with teenagers and young adults. And so that's how we got here.
Okay. So when I read your background and biography, it said that you're on a mission to change lives through entrepreneurship and sustainable social enterprise. That's a mouthful.
Indeed. It is a mouthful.
My question is sustainable social enterprise. Social gets attached as an adjective to a lot of nouns these days. So what is social enterprise, I guess, first?
Well, I'm still trying to figure that out. It's obviously a relatively new term. And we've been on this journey for decades and a very long time. And, even 5 years ago, I don't think I'd even heard of the phrase. But the idea is, if you want to make a difference, or at least this is the worldview from Mike. If you want to make a difference in the lives of other folks, I think the old model is let's start a 501c3, or let's go work at a church, or whatever the nonprofit is, and we're going to raise donations. We're going to do a gala once a year, and people are going to give money in because they want to do the right thing, and we're going to be able to take that money, go do something with it. And I think as life has evolved, and definitely even in just the last 10, 15 years between the big recession in 8, 9, 10, and then obviously now we're dealing with a pandemic. I don't know that that's a sustainable model for the future. And even if it is, I don't know that it's the best model, because you're always limited by the fact that now you've got to spend time on donor management, right, on raising donations. And that's time and energy that should be spent on actually doing the work and reaching the people you want to reach. And so, we had this idea that obviously a lot of other people have had, where we said, okay, what if we could build a business, a for-profit? Let's go out there and create something out of nothing. Mm-hmm. But we're going to take those profits and we're going to funnel them through to a nonprofit. And so we've created a 501c3 at the same time. And that's what's going to let us go out and do the mission, right? We don't need to worry about donors. We don't need to worry about any of that kind of stuff. We'll just self-fund and we can take care of it. And that's what we've been trying to do. And that's what we've been growing over the last 5 years. And I think as a model, it makes a lot of sense and it works really, really well. You've just got to be happy with the fact that you're going to give a lot of your profit away and not get to go spend it and, buy another boat.
Right. So the idea basically is, okay, we've got a business. We're going to make money in this business. It'll be successful. And we're going to take X amount of those dollars and go support the nonprofit. So
absolutely.
And in your case, what the for-profit was called is called WorkLodge. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. WorkLodge. That's correct.
And what does WorkLodge do?
So we create amazing workspaces for entrepreneurs and businesses. So flex workspace, co-working, executive suites, call it whatever you want. But It's shorter term, no 5, 7, 10-year leases or anything like that. It's full service, white glove. We think of ourselves as a boutique hotel for entrepreneurs and business owners.
Nice idea. The question I have for you, though, is with COVID and the pandemic, how's that affected all that? That's got to be a difficult time right now.
Well, I think it's been an interesting year. I got to say we're pretty blessed, and we're still chugging along. We're still profitable. Definitely not the same revenue level as last year, but I think most people would say that about their businesses. So I'm not sure that that's a black mark for the flex workspace. I think we probably operate a little bit better than average. I'm not going to say we're the best guys out there, but we definitely are probably in that higher tier. And I think as a result of that, we were very cautious in who we attracted on the way in. We tried to structure things really balanced for us and for the folks we serve. And so, it hasn't put us negative. And obviously I've seen some of the other spaces, struggling and going under, and obviously some real estate as well, taking some real pain. Right. Don't know what the future holds, but so far we're keeping our head where we need it to be, and we're moving forward. I'm genuinely pretty excited about 2021. Actually, I think with the vaccine and all of this kind of stuff, we've been preaching this for years, that even big companies, why are you making people drive in, an hour and a half when you could work on a hub and spoke model? Our first location was built in the suburbs back in 2014 when we signed the lease, right. 15 when we opened, because we've always believed, give a professional corporate campus environment to your folks, but make it closer to home. And now with everything that's been going on this year, we genuinely believe this is going to be just validation for the model that we've been evangelizing for years. And we're excited about some big uptick next year. So
I agree with you. I mean, I think that's an excellent idea and an excellent viewpoint, because I know people that are in commercial real estate, in big commercial real estate, where they've got the 50, 60 story buildings in downtown, Manhattan or places like that. And they're hurting. And people, they don't want to go there anymore. They have learned that they can work from home, or they could, not well all the time. Sometimes, having that professional space would be better. Like when my cat jumps up here on me and starts, meowing, it might be good to have a space. And we do have, by the way, near me, like 5 minutes from me, a guy started it. It's been about, I want to say 10 years or so. I looked at it about 10 years ago. As taking, I was going to take the whole top floor of the place at the time, because I had some bigger ideas. We ended up not making that jump. It was a bad time, real estate wise, and just the whole economy was kind of a little crazy then, right after 2008, So
right.
So, but he's full now, and I go down there because the bottom level happens to be an Italian deli, and that he rented space to. So I go to the Italian deli and I check it out. That it looks full to me, and the parking lot's still full. And he has another building that he bought. These are old buildings. One was a cigar manufacturing company at one time years ago, and he rehabbed them and turned them into some pretty cool, some really nice space, some real good office space. I think you're right about 2021. I think people are going to be looking for space like you have.
Well, I think so. And honestly, for landlords, I think we make a really great partner, because they don't want to, and they aren't built to deal with 3-year, 5-year short-term kind of deals. They make huge capital investments, and they need some balance for that. They need 10, 15-year leases, and a small business shouldn't be signing a 10, 15-year lease. You've got no idea where you're going to be in 10 or 15 years. Yeah. So you're either going to overpay for too much space, underpay, and then lock yourself into not having enough, or you might get lucky and have got it just right. But my experience is that most people don't.
Yeah, no, I've had a couple clients that have made that mistake over years. I'm certainly know little about real estate, but I saw them go out and rent a lot of space, and then things changed in terms of, in one case, a part of the company got bought out, and that's nice, but they moved. They took the company with them, and now you're sitting there with a lot of empty space, and he was trying to figure out how to cut a deal, to get out from under it. So yeah, I think it's a good concept. So anyways, though, you're taking that profit from WorkLodge, and you're taking it and putting it back into something you call the Gabriel Project.
Yes, sir.
So what is the Gabriel Project?
So that's the kind of umbrella term that we've given to the different projects that we work on. Some projects are local, and so we try and partner with local nonprofits and other organizations who are very hands-on in the specific focal areas that we have as a nonprofit. So for example, our primary focal area is going to be children, particularly children without parents, orphans, call them, whatever you want, but children in a situation where they really can't get out from under it without some outside help. And then our second primary focus is going to be for women in a similar situation. So human trafficking victims, women in abusive situations. And so, primarily those are the two areas we focus on. And so we work and partner with organizations that reach out to them. In Houston, we work and partner with a group who provide counseling and rehabilitative support to victims of human trafficking, for example. But then in Thailand, we work with a group who actually rescue people from that lifestyle. And then they reskill and retrain them through vocational training. So they've got a way to make a living without just thinking, all I know how to do is sell myself, so I might as well just go back to that. Yeah. And actually that dropped today on my podcast, the Mike Thakur Show. Was our interview with Diana, who runs that organization. It's a fascinating conversation about all the work they're doing out there. And so we try and balance off a little bit of local and then some different projects overseas. Obviously, a little bit more bang for your buck when you go overseas, so we can do some larger scale things there. But we're definitely community driven and community at heart. So very interested in what's happening around our locations in Houston and Dallas.
So how's it going? I mean, what's your forecast for the future for Gabriel?
It's been amazing, honestly. We've gotten to meet some just incredible people doing incredible things. We've, for example, in India, we built 3 children's homes over the course of a couple of years, and we got to meet this group, and this is all they do. They build homes for people who can fund it, but they build them again in a self-sustaining way where they garner a lot of local support from the village, so that once it's up and running, there's enough support there to keep it going, and it's not a continual kind of resource drain, and things like that really inspire us. Diana in Thailand with the Sheila folks, same deal. So they reskill, they retrain these folks, ladies and men, and then they help them get going in business. Some of them then come back in, and help the ministry with future students that come into the programs. And they give of themselves to help others get better. Now they've started a sewing program and textiles, partly because of COVID and the lockdown. And so, people are staying home more, so they needed something they could ship and that kind of thing. But just to see the ingenuity, just to see the ideas, and just to be able to, kind of just breathe in, from their energy and their excitement and the things they're doing. It's just so inspiring for us and so encouraging that it helps fuel us in the things that we want to do for the future. But I think long-term, our goal is, we really believe there's a way to transform, villages one at a time, where we could put people on the ground and help really bring some education and some understanding around what they can do, how much value they have as people, that they do have skill, that they can be shown how to take that skill and monetize it, become an entrepreneur. What does that look like? Really a lot more of that vocational training, a lot more of that educational side of things. And also, mixed in with a little bit of spiritual as well. We want everybody we serve and help to understand that we see them as having value because they were created with value, and they're real human beings, and that they're not to look at themselves as any less just because of the past that they've had. And I think fusing those two things together, where we can hopefully help in a spiritual perspective a little bit, and also a practical perspective in a little bit, I think we can change the world one person at a time, but it's still one more person than yesterday. So
yeah, kind of the starfish story,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So how do you get them to make that leap to entrepreneurship, though? I mean, that's got to be something totally different. Is it just they see it, they model it, they see success, and what? Yeah,
I saw. Obviously, we're very early in this process, and so again, by partnering with other folks first and seeing how they're doing it and what is working and what isn't working, we're learning and absorbing information so that when we go out and start to do this ourselves, we can do it well. But what we're seeing and what we're learning from the things we're reading and the folks that we're partnering with is, you're absolutely right. Modeling is definitely the primary way when they see that happening, and also that support. And then I think also it's not just support from the folks that are there helping, but it's support from the others that have gone through that kind of a situation or program, and then seeing, they've been successful and they've managed to change their lifestyle, and they've managed to go out and forge a career for themselves or earn a living for themselves and support their families. Because that's really what's happening, is a lot of these people do this just to take care of their families so they don't have to do something terrible. And I think when they see that and they're supported by their peers, I think that's a really interesting approach. And I was reading a book, I talk about this, fairly regularly by, it was a book on the Grameen Bank, Yusuf something or other. I never remember his last name, but he's a guy who basically won the Nobel Prize for micro lending. Okay. And one of the tenets of how he was so successful was he created these peer groups where they wouldn't just lend, even at a micro level, to one person on their own, unless they were part of a bigger peer group where they could hold each other accountable, provide support for each other, and make sure that if one person was struggling, the other ones are on the hook for it. So they all need to come and help to make sure they can be successful. And it just created this mini micro community almost of entrepreneurs in, Pakistan and in these developing nations, where they've been able to just do incredible things at a much, much smaller level than we do, in the Western world. But relatively speaking, their expenses are much smaller and the cost of living is much smaller. So the impact is the same or bigger than we can get here if we do those same things.
Okay. And you're not having to spend your time developing, getting funding, right? And
right.
I mean, you're just not doing that. So when you team with these other companies, these other nonprofits, are they things like, trying to get water for places, get clean water, or that kind of stuff, or?
So we've done a water well project. My wife was actually flying to Cambodia a couple of years ago. We were doing some due diligence on a group that we were interested in learning from and also potentially partnering with. And so she's on the plane, and in the row in front of her, she hears this guy telling a story about these water wells that he's building out in Cambodia. And so, Linda being Linda, when she gets off the flight, kind of, taps him and says, hey, I couldn't help but over here. What is it you're doing? Tell me all about it. And so we built a friendship with Shane, and it turns out he's a Hollywood stunt guy, and he was filming in Cambodia for a movie, and it just touched his heart. The country just absolutely melted his heart. And so now he travels there regularly. And so this year we built water wells for, I think, about 2,500 people in different rural villages around, the Cambodian countryside. And with Shane, his organization is called AquaShare. And just a phenomenal guy. And I tell you what was really amazing to me, it's not just that the water obviously is needed to drink and for life. Right. It's that they use it for farming and for vegetation, and the crops grow better when it's clean water versus the river water. Mm-hmm. And so they're able to take that to market. They can grow their flowers, healthier, stronger, quicker. And again, at that micro level, they've got a business now. Right. And it's a healthier business because things are growing better than they were with the dirty, infected, bacteria-ridden, river water. I just never thought of that. And it really blessed me when I was hearing one of the ladies in the village talking on video, and we were kind of getting the footage after the fact to just realize that, wow, there's this secondary purpose here for clean water that's almost as important as the primary purpose. I mean, we need them to be alive, obviously, and well, but if they're alive, they've got to be able to take care of themselves, and it's helping with that too. So it was just incredible.
Yeah, over the years, I've looked at the clean water projects and helped with some, and it's always struck me that, and I'm a capitalist, entrepreneur all my life. I mean, a serial entrepreneur. So that's the way I look at things. But I thought, you need clean water, you need clean food, good food, and you need medical care. Those three things, you have those three things, and now you can have a business. Now people can have a business. So, yeah, it's fantastic. So, who's been the most important person in your life? Can you tell me about him or her?
Well, I think ultimately probably my wife would rank as most important. We married as babies, so I was 20, she was 19 when we got married. So we've literally lived life together. She's been hugely supportive. We've got hearts that really are very, very similar, and we chase the same things. We've never been driven by just another dollar. That's not the driver at all, or the motivator. And it's been such a privilege, I think, for me to be able to go through life knowing that here's this partner who I can count on, who's dependable, who loves me with all my flaws and all. And she's my biggest cheerleader, and and she puts up with my crazy ideas. So definitely been just a phenomenal 26 years we've been married now. So yeah.
Very nice. So if you could, and I did a podcast a month or so ago. It was if you could turn back time and talk to your 18-year-old self, what would you tell yourself? Okay, so
Really easy.
Yeah, here you are. So
this one's an easy one. So
okay,
as a
good.
child, I grew up in the church, and so I grew up, and it's not the church's fault, but consciously or not, there is an undertone that if you want to make a difference, you go into full-time ministry, if you want to call it that, or, you commit yourself to the non-profit world and you go out there and be a missionary in the third world or whatever. And I wish I would have known when I was, a teenager, no, there is another way. Business and entrepreneurship can open up so many more opportunities. It can fund so much more good work, and it can free up so much more in the way of resources. To me, this is playing the game. This is me on the pitch, on the field, throwing the ball. I don't want to be a coach at the sidelines. I'm happy on the field. Don't take me off. And I had no idea. It took me a decade plus to figure that out, and I think I feel as though I lost years that I shouldn't have lost. And if I could go back and do it again, that's what I'd do differently.
But from the time when you and your wife got married, now you were a minister then, is that correct? Or you were?
So we've always done a little bit of both.
Okay.
So we studied theology together.
Okay.
And then my wife went on to do a teaching degree, and I went into business. Okay. And I, went to the workforce and went into sales and did pretty well at that. So had a good time. And then we've kind of flip-flopped over the years between primary focus of business and kind of professional life, always doing, maybe a little bit of the nonprofit stuff in the background. Mm-hmm. And then we flipped and we focused on the nonprofit primarily for a few years with, Teen Challenge, with some of the church work, and then we've kind of rolled all the way back now to primarily focused on the business and the entrepreneurial with the nonprofit and the mission side, in the background. So I always think of it as two sides of a coin, and we just kind of flip it every now and again.
Yeah, you always seem to come back to that, trying to make the world a better place.
Seems to be.
Yeah, it seems to be. I have a friend, you would like him. His name's Peter Cady. I can mention him here. We're going to have him on a podcast at some point. He started out as a professional photographer, which I happen to also. That was my background many, many years ago. So he started out as a professional photographer, but he always had this calling that he wanted to be involved in some church-related thing. So he went to theology school and became an ordained minister, and then worked as a youth minister for I think maybe 20 years. But I think during that time, I think he would say that he got burned out with the church. I mean,
right.
It was the politics of this, the church, the kids were wonderful. The job that he was doing was wonderful. So he's now kind of making that same segue back into the business end and seeing what he can do from that standpoint, and how he can contribute, as a businessman and not necessarily as a minister,
right,
every week. So, yeah, sort of, it happens that way, I guess. So,
that's awesome.
What was the fork in the road moment for you then when you made that decision to concentrate on what you're doing now?
So I think I was back in the UK. We lived in the US for a while, and we moved back, had our first child, and actually I think we just had our second. And I was back in the sales world, and my sales teams used to sell to the government. We sold to local, national government, Ministry of Defense, that kind of thing. So we kind of had the higher volume stuff and the bigger orders, right, which was neat. And we were doing pretty well. And I got approached by one of the, so we sold on government contracts, and I suspect it's similar here to there, where, once you're on the contract, there's only a certain number of suppliers that get awarded, and then they're the primary suppliers. And so I got approached from one of the competing companies on that same government contract, and I actually accepted the job with them. And then, my business, fought hard to keep me, which I stayed for a little longer. And then I got approached again by another competitor, and I'm 28, 29, something like that. They just, they made me a great offer. It was a lot of money for, a young guy back then. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to go for it. And so I moved, and I lasted 3 months. And so I had a 3-month window before my 6-month notice period kicked in, because it was quite a senior role. And so I was there maybe 4 or 5 weeks. And I remember vividly having a conversation with my wife, Linda, one day. And I said, I could be successful here, but to do that, I feel like I'm going to have to sell my soul. And I don't think I want to do that for this. So I don't know what I'm going to do, but I don't want to do this. and I had nothing to go to. I had nothing lined up. I just walked away from a company that I'd worked for years, and actually took me back when I moved back to the UK. So it's not like I wanted to go backwards again. I had nowhere forwards to go. I just knew that wasn't what I was created to do. And so, you know, we left that. We just bought a new house, big mortgage, no idea. And, you know, I started another small business as a kind of hobby project, really just to generate some revenue while we figured it out. And it was about 6 months or so after that when we just started to get that itch that maybe we weren't finished in the US, and maybe there was more to do over here. Mm-hmm. And probably just around a year from when I quit, we were back in the United States, starting over again.
And what were you doing when you got back then? What was the first thing you did?
And so we came back actually to work at a church that we'd worked at previously. And when we ended up as children's pastors for a few years, and then we started a church in the north side of Houston. And that's when I was working in the regular world then with the security company, you know, kidnap, ransom, extortion, all that kind of fun stuff.
Right. I read that in your biography, and I was kind of leading us down that path. So right. I got to hear about the kidnap, ransom part of your job life. What were you doing?
Yeah, so I was you know, I was working at the church, and obviously not getting paid a whole lot of money. I had this part-time job, you know, in the mall somewhere. And I met someone one day. I was just serving him as a customer. We got talking, and he was the CEO of a boutique security firm. And a real nice guy, just very charismatic. And so we got talking. He wanted some help with a couple of things. I'd done something in my past that had some skill to do it. So I did a couple little projects for him and helped him out. And we built a bit of a relationship from it. And then one day we had this conversation, you know, even though I'm not from a security background, he really needed more operational help. And from a business background, well, that suited me, you know, just fine. So we thought, let's give it a go. And I started part-time, and then it became full-time, and then the role changed a little bit. And by the end, I was chief operating officer there. But it was a very unique space. The best way to describe it, there was an article, I don't know if it was the Wall Street Journal, or it was one of the major publications, an article on him and the business, and they called it Secret Service for Billionaires. And that's probably a really good way to describe what we did, because most of our clients were very successful, or very large corporations. And we took care of those unique situations that would come up, family safety, family security, travel, you know, kidnap and ransom is the kind of one that most people remember because it sounds a little bit, you know, more interesting.
Yeah.
And those things definitely happen as well. Obviously not every day, but I was definitely involved in, you know, in a few of them. But it was just an incredible growth time for me. I learned a lot from him as a leader. Again, a very, very good communicator, given what he did. And he was a negotiator. He'd handled maybe 70 something kidnappings successfully over the course of his career. Just an incredible guy.
Wow. Yeah. You don't hear about those stories. I guess those are the ones that people keep hidden, including my cat back here. If you hear my cat yelling.
He's getting excited about it. That's okay.
Yeah, she's excited. So what are you proudest of right now in your business career?
Oh, well, that's a tough one. You know, this year I was fortunate enough to be recognized by the Business Journal here in Houston as one of the most admired CEOs. And, you know, we run a small company. We don't have a whole lot of staff. You know, we're not doing 100 million in revenue or anything like that. So I don't know if it's the proudest thing that I've got, but I think it was definitely one of the proudest moments, not to win an award, but sometimes it feels like when you're on the smaller end, you know, used to run sales teams selling tens of millions of dollars. And now, you know, I'm running a company that doesn't do anything like that. Sometimes you forget that there are other people out there that still notice and still pay attention, that you can run a really good business or you can run a really good company without necessarily having scale. And I read a book a while ago called Small Giants. And it was a really, really encouraging book because it was all about these companies that were giants in what they do, but they're small. They do it really well, but they're small, and that's okay. You know, if I never get big, it's no worries. If I do, that'd be great too. So, you know, I think that would rank as one of them.
Well, you know, that's being recognized as one of Houston's top CEOs. That's pretty nice recognition. Tell me this. So what's the average person? And I asked this, I'll give you a little segue here first. There's a organization I support called the Listen First Project. You may not have heard about it, but it's basically a movement to mend our frayed social fabric that we have by building relationships and bridging one conversation at a time, to bring people together. They, for instance, when they were tearing down all the statues last year down south, and they wanted to take down Confederate monuments, and so you had two groups of people. You had the people that said that this is history, and you had the people on the other side that said this is racial, and trying to bring those people together. This group, brought people together and actually had conversations one at a time, and then group conversations, and they were able to come to consensus of how to handle some of these kinds of things. But they have a project all over the country where they're just trying to get people to listen. So one of the things that they talk about and we talk about is, what's the best thing, do you think, that the average person can do to make the world a better place?
I think the best thing that we can do, I think there's two things we can do as people in general. I think one, slow down, and two, take the time to view things from someone else's perspective. And that goes both ways, but I think we're so busy and in such a hurry. I honestly think that's the biggest problem of all. We're just running around at 1,000,000 miles an hour. The phones are pinging, social media is just sucking us in, and we've got plenty of time. We just use it really badly because there's so many things to do. And I think if we could slow down and turn the Netflix off once in a while, and put the phone down and leave it down for more than 10 or 20 minutes, just letting our minds wander like they probably did in the good old days, I think would change a lot about our perspectives, because it would stop necessarily just being about me and meeting my need all the time. And then I think taking the time to see things from other people's perspectives, it's always fascinating. Everyone has an opinion, right? I heard somebody make this comment, an opinion's like a rear end. Everybody's got one. Yeah. Some of them are nice, some of them not so nice, but we've all got one. And I think if we paused our own opinions a little more, took that time to think about where someone else is coming from, their opinion may well be valid. It may be better than ours. It may be worse than ours, but it may be coming from incorrect facts or incorrect teaching. And if we could just take the time to understand where it comes from, maybe we can do better at helping them understand ours. Or maybe if they are right and we're actually wrong, maybe we'll realize that on our own by taking the time to figure out, how they got to where they're going. Like when you do math and they say, don't give me the answer, I want to see the working out. Right. That's the story there. Yeah.
Taking the time to listen, huh?
Yeah.
Listen to other people. We're so right now, people distrust, and, they dislike and despise people that aren't like them, that don't share the same viewpoints. And that's crazy. It is time to just start listening to each other. Well, I have one last question I want to ask you.
Okay.
Okay. So, tell me something that I should have asked you, but I didn't know enough to ask.
Oh, wow. Something you should have asked me.
And not the Guinness record either.
I was going to say, why is my barber as good as yours? Because we've got matching kind of hairstyles over here.
We do.
But, one of the questions that we tend to ask folks on the show when we're finishing up is, when everything's finished and everything's said and done, and you kick up your heels and you're gone, what would you like people to remember you by? And it's funny because I ask it of other people, but I've never stopped to really think about it, for myself. So I'll put myself in that situation. I don't know if this is the best answer or not, but I think for right now, if people just remember, I might not be perfect. I might not do everything the way everybody else thinks I'm supposed to. I might not communicate as well as everybody wants me to, but my heart and my intentions are absolutely as clean as I can possibly make them. I'm just trying to figure out how.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.